Hi there. Welcome to the Lead Relationally podcast. Let's go for a walk and join the guys as they talk about a better way to lead people.
All right, glad you could join us, everyone. Well, today we are talking about everyone's favorite topic, conflict.
We're going to have some conflict. I'm looking forward to it. We don't often have conflict together, but this whole podcast is going to be full of it.
Well, we're talking about conflict because it's one of our 7 C's. That doesn't mean we necessarily have to have conflict.
I don't think we agree on conflict.
Well, we'll see where this goes.
goes.
This one might be a little bit of a surprise for people because you think, well, conflict, it's a negative thing for a relationship. But I think what we want to suggest today is that conflict is just inevitable in any relationship. And so if that's the case, we've got to look at it and we say, if there is conflict, how can it be a positive thing at the end of the day?
When we think about it, when we were kids, we dealt with conflict all the time. We're always whacking people or getting into fights or picking on each other. You know, it's like there's nothing but conflict. I think that's just what it was.
Well, I think we fought like cartoon characters, where they just beat each other over the head with clubs and no one ever dies or anything, right? They pop right back up in the next scene.
It was Tom and Jerry, do you know what I mean? Like whacking each other with mallets, do you know what I mean? And so then I tried it with my sister. It didn't work. It wasn't quite the same. So interestingly, as we grow up, we kind of want to leave that behind or don't want conflict then, or we feel as though we grow up or grow out of it. But we don't really. It just kind of morphs a little bit more internally. We hide it better. Whereas when you're a kid, you don't. Someone takes your toy, you whack them with a mallet.
We had different upbringings.
Yeah, it's true.
But it is true. Kids deal with conflict head on. It's always out in the open and it's dealt with directly. And then kids move on because they do want to get along with other kids. As adults, we avoid it and we bury things and we internalize it. And we do it in the name of being polite and keeping things civil. But it doesn't mean that the conflict isn't there. And I think what we're proposing is that since conflict is inevitable, it's going to be there in any relationship that we have. We need to know how to work with it. And if we do it well, I think what we'll find is that navigating conflict well actually is an opportunity to build trust in a relationship and to come out even healthier and stronger than if there isn't conflict or if conflict is suppressed or avoided. Sometimes when we say, well, we don't have conflict, so we must be doing well. If you have no conflict, it's probably because the relationship maybe isn't that close, actually, right? So it hasn't been tested. Or there is conflict, but no one wants to bring it up. And so it's internalized or it's suppressed, but it's being felt, absolutely. And so what we're saying is people who lead people relationally, as we move towards people in relationship, any kind of relationship, there's going to be conflict.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think we're looking forward to starting conflict. It's like, okay, let's go and tear up our workplaces with massive amounts of conflict. But to only view it as negative misses the gift that sometimes it can bring in the testing of relationship. And so it maybe even just changing how we feel about it. Hey, there's some conflict. There's things come up. It doesn't necessarily mean it's negative. It does mean it's a challenge that does need to be navigated well. And so changing the tone of how we feel about it from the start will give us more options and help us be able to lead it in a more positive way.
Mm-hmm. Well, think about your closest relationships. They're probably relationships where you have had to navigate some level of conflict. At some point, somebody stepped on the other's toes and you had to have a conversation about it. You had to say sorry and you had to kind of do the dance. And in the end, the reason that person's still your friend today is because you chose to let it go. You chose to move on. You chose to say, okay, that was a misstep, but we're not going to sever the relationship here. And so actually trust is built up because now both parties know, okay, we can handle a little bit of this. Certainly in marriage, but also even close friends are probably people that at some point we have had to have some sort of conversation about some conflict. And this is what's so hard for us as leaders is we are just in denial that there's conflict and that it's right on the horizon, that we can see it coming. It's like a train that you can see the steam, you can hear the whistle, or you can feel the rumble of the train coming. So I guess what we're saying is we got to get on board with it because when we avoid it, the conflict train starts to pick up speed. It starts to rattle. It starts to get a little out of control. Everybody's starting to get a little nervous. They feel uncomfortable. Then we're playing catch up. Now we're trying to get a runaway train under control again.
That's the wild thing about the conflict train. is you did see it coming, right? And maybe you saw it before you heard it, and it's blown through a couple of stops already. But now you're thinking, oh, it'll slow down. It's coming up to a hill. It'll take care of itself. We know it doesn't. That's just wishful thinking. Like, but we know it won't. Like, the thing is with conflict is like once it starts to rumble like that, once it starts to pick up speed, it doesn't take care of itself. Someone needs to take care of it. And you can't steer a train, but you can slow it down, or you could make it stop at a stop. But you can't do that if you're not on board. And that's the work of leadership is, can you get on board the conflict train and stop avoiding it? And literally, when are you going to get on board? Is it going to be as it starts, as it's picking up speed? Is it going to be when it's midway, when it's coming towards you and you're stood on a bridge? And it's like, well, now it's going to knock me off or I'm going to get on it. It's like, this is scary. Or it's become a runaway train and now I'm chasing it down because it's gone right past me and now it's on fire and it's going crazy. And everyone on board knows it's gone right past me. My team knows, everyone knows, and now I'm playing catch up.
Well, now you got to be that hero that's chasing down the train and reaching out for the bar to pull yourself on so you can pull the brake and the sparks start flying and everything and everybody's screaming and it's chaos. We don't want to operate that way, but I get it. People hate conflict. They would rather throw themselves in front of this train and let it just wipe them out than get on board with it and learn to navigate it.
And that's when conflict can tear teams apart. Because the inaction of the leader means that now the conflict is now running the team. And we've all been there. We've all seen that. And it's not great. And that's what we're saying is, as you hear the rumble, you need to get ready for a rumble and get on board with it instead of just hoping it will go away.
Okay, Chris, so if I accept that conflict is inevitable and I can't avoid it, and if I indulge you for a minute and say, okay, I will get on board at an earlier station, I'll get on board the conflict train. How do we navigate it well so that we come out with stronger, healthier relationships? What does navigating conflict well look like?
Well, we're saying that conflict is happening within people. That's where the rumbles is, where the signs are, right? You can see that there's an attitude appearing or someone's grumpy or something's happening. So you can see the signs of it. They think they're hiding it inside them, but it's leaking out. That's what's giving you the cues that it's coming. So then you can say, okay, well, now I'm actually going to go and initiate a conversation around that. I'm going to go and say, hey, everything okay? Like, I can see this is happening. All right, you're bringing something that's internal and making it external. You're actually saying, can you verbalize to this? Can you explain to me the frustration? Can you tell me what I've done or what someone else has done? What's causing this? And could you describe it to me? So you're building a station. You're saying, hey, we're getting on board right now. This is kind of happening. And you're confronting, but more inquisitively. You're just asking a question just to say, hey, I'm seeing something internal. I'm asking you to share it with me externally. Bring it to a head gently and intentionally. And if they will then trust you, they will then share, oh my gosh, like if they could articulate it. They may not be able to do a good job of it, but you've asked and you've prepared yourself to hear what this person has to say.
All right, so I can see it working if the conflict is something that's sort of external. There's a stressor that's outside of both of us. I can see that it's affecting you, but the conflict isn't personal to us. What do you do if I feel like I have to confront you on something that there's some expectation that you're not living up to or meeting, and as your leader, I need to find a way to bring this up with you, recognizing it's not going to be a fun conversation because it's going to sting you a bit, or, you know, you might become defensive, but to bury my head in the sand and avoid it, it's not going to change. So how do you deal with conflict that is a little bit personal?
Curiosity. You're trying to say, I'm seeing that I've frustrated you or something's going on. I'm trying to understand it. Could you please help me understand it? I'm wondering if there's an expectation I've not met, or there's something you thought I was going to do, or somehow I feel as though we're not on the same page, and I'm trying to understand what page you're on so that I can realize where the difference is, where the gap is, so that I can close that with you or become closer to an understanding of where this conflict is even coming from, so that we can actually then begin an actual conversation to address that. But only through curiosity and me understanding where that gap is can I even approach the conflict with any element of health, rather than just being, we're just opposing forces, opposite parts of a magnet clashing. This there actually means this is like the timeout pause. Help me understand it, what's going on. So then I even know what it is. I know something's not great, but what's the thing that's not great? And so we can't even talk about something because we don't even know what the topic of the conversation is until we're curious enough to discover that.
Well, I really like that word curiosity because I think there's an inherent humility to it as a leader, that when we approach someone that we could potentially have a conflict with, we're coming with an attitude of saying, I'm ready to own whatever part of this might be mine. And that's hard to do because usually we can see clearly where the other person is at fault and we're not always ready to own our part of it. But certainly as leaders, we need to be the ones that go first and say, oh, I'm sorry if there's anything that I said or did that gave you this impression or that. Sometimes we can get out in front of it. If we spend a few minutes thinking, if this person had a problem with me, what would it be? You know, you're smart people. A few minutes of self-reflection, we can probably guess at what the issue could be. And if we get out in front of it, that just sets the whole tone for the conversation. And when someone sees that we've gone first and we're ready to not just own our part, but over-own, that if there was anything I did unintentionally, that just says, hey, I'm for you and I'm for this relationship being healthy. So let me know if there's anything I can do. You just described a beautiful picture of a leader going to somebody and expressing really their hope for the relationship. This is how I want to engage with you. I don't want there to be anything. If I've done or said anything to communicate something other than how I actually feel about the work that you do or how we work together or anything, then I want to set the record straight. And you invite somebody else into that and they reiterate, no, I liked your idea and I'm sorry if that was a poor choice of words. You got two people pouring their heart out. What a beautiful thing. Now when you walk away, all of that is out there now. Mm-hmm. It's been reiterated and affirmed, the heart that people have for each other.
Well, you've now cemented how that train track that the conflict's going to ride on has been set. Because beforehand, if it runs away, then it either slows down and crashes into a wall and stops and resolves itself. But now that's the pattern. We just wait until this thing crashes or comes to a halt all by itself. That's the pattern. I hope this works out. I hope it doesn't cause too much damage. Or we get on, we slam on the brakes together and we actually work it out. Now we've set a bit of a pattern. The first few times may be a bit awkward, but as trust builds, it gets easier and easier and you can do it earlier and earlier till the point where now once you even hear a little rumble, that's the nipping it in the bud. And that's a team that's now operating in a high trust. They're used to jumping on it early, not waiting until it's zooming past you or they've decided because you set the tone, because you went first, that this is how we're going to deal with conflict. Just like you're hoping to do in your marriage prep, let's have a few rumbles now that sets how this conflict train's going to run in our relationship. I don't want this running our business. I don't want conflict running our business. I want our team running the business together or the project or whatever it may be. So we're not going to have this thing running out of control. So we're going to jump on things early because I'm setting the tone and the pace for how we do that. And the first few times it may not go great, but they will realize what you're trying to do. And if you be consistent, I think they'll meet you in it. And they'll be like, okay, I'd much rather this than the alternative, which is things getting out of control and it runs our team.
We can't avoid it. Conflict is inevitable, but it's a missed opportunity to avoid it and not harness it and navigate it in a healthy way. We are missing out on an opportunity to actually build trust and communicate so much of what we want our people to understand. And the conflict is the test. So don't miss it. Get on that train at the earliest station that you can. You had talked about a marriage earlier, and that's a good metaphor. And since I am your work wife,
it's been said.
So I've been called. Why am I the wife?
Do you want to answer to that? No, now's not the time.
Well, we've had to navigate a few bumps along the road as our friendship has moved along, and that's completely normal and to be expected. But, just to let people peek behind the curtain here, we have very little conflict, but that's because the conflict has been dealt with at such an early stage with such high levels of trust offered. I know this person, I know their heart, and so I know their motivation. And so if something came across the wrong way, it's clearly a misunderstanding or a misstep. It's not personal. And I refuse to accept it that way because I know it wouldn't be given that way because I know you. And so when that is the way that a conversation comes up, with all of that foundation propping the thing up, it's easy. Quick apology here, there. Yep, relationship affirmed. We move on and we let go of things.
What I've realized about myself in that is because it's uncomfortable for me, I've gone and made it about me. Where what I've realized is I need to hold the tension of the conflict inside myself a little bit longer, process it a little bit longer. So I've cleared away some of the smoke and got a little bit more clarity of what am I even going to that person with? Okay, if I just go and rinse them up and down the wall and blast them with 15 things, it's too much. If I can go and say, hey, I was thinking about what we were saying, and here's my 2 questions. It's now, I brought it down enough, slowed it down enough. The train's now moving at a slower rate for the other person to be able to get on board with me, because it's not moving at 1,000 miles an hour and it's just way too much and now they're just out of control. It's gone slow enough and I've articulated it well enough to be able to invite them to trust me enough to engage with me. Whereas with you or other people, I can come and I haven't worked it out as much and it is moving faster, and I'm being honest and I'm asking them to say, hey, can you help me with this? I can bring them on earlier when I'm a bit more hot or not together because of the foundation that I have with them. So I've had to learn that some of that is, who is this person I'm going to start engaging in this potentially conflict conversation? Have I slowed it down enough considering the trust I have with them, or don't have with them, as the case may be, where, no, I've really got to slow this thing down before I go to them. And so some of that is straight up on me because I've come in too hot and they can't get on board. And then at other times I'm like, no, I've had years worth of working through stuff with this person, so I can come in as hot as I like, as long as I announce that I'm coming in hot, but here I am. And then it can actually almost be enjoyable because they can laugh at you a little bit because you can laugh at yourself, which breaks a bit of the tension.
It's the cartoon clubbing over the head.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, again, that is back to the humility, the curiosity, and the self-awareness to say, it's not about me. Yes, this conflict needs to be dealt with, but for the sake of the other, I actually have to hold this a bit longer and figure out what's the best way to approach it so that we both win in the end. It's not just, well, we just got to bring things into light and deal with it and move on. It's like, we can burn people if we're too ready and keen. Well, we're just throwing people in front of the conflict train. We're not slowing it down and reaching out our hand and saying, hey, hop on here and let's do this together. So, Chris, as we are rounding the corner here and starting to head down the home stretch, how do we help our friends who they know that they hate conflict, they wish it wasn't a thing? How do we help them be ready to navigate the next thing that comes along, the next train that they can feel coming?
Conflict's coming. It's inevitable. There's a rumble. There's a whistle. It's happening. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that you've caused something or you've done something wrong. There's going to be no team that has no conflict. And so it's not like, oh, well, everything must be going wrong. So it's just being comfortable with the fact that conflict will come. And when it does, what you do about it will make all the difference. Because avoiding it seems like a good thing and you may get away with it a couple of times, but now you've set a pattern for all conflict needs to be avoided. And that's not a healthy pattern of a great team that needs to work together. Sometimes when a bit of conflict comes, it's like, here's an opportunity to get on board and control the pace of this a little bit so it doesn't wipe everybody out. That is a great leadership moment. And for people that are trying to get good at leading people, when it comes, it may not be the threat, it may be the thing that helps build trust in your team, and it could be a tool that you can use rather than something to run away from, but you've got to be curious. So what would your bit of advice be, especially for someone a bit more hot-headed like me that isn't running away as much? What would your advice be for that person?
Well, I think we always do well to be very self-aware, to look into the mirror, and we always say, we got to be honest with ourselves. And so we have to take a moment and ask, how much trust has been built up with this person? Let's not just assume it's there. How ready are we to forgive a misstep? Or does it really bother us? People will misstep. They will be out of line and we'll think, who do they think they are? What do they not realize? And guess what? They don't realize. So do we still want to work with people? Or is every one of our relationships going to end in divorce if there's a misstep? Do we try and nip things in the bud and keep them small because we don't want navigating big things. We don't want to have to chase down a runaway train and leap on with everybody screaming. We don't want that. We want to nip things in the bud and just clear the air as soon as possible. I'm sure everybody's been thinking about a certain person, a certain relationship that maybe you've had conflict with, or you're in the middle of one, or there's one coming. The light at the end of the tunnel is an oncoming train and it's heading towards you. And so ask yourself, as you think about that relationship, Have you successfully navigated conflict in the past? What are the trust levels at? And what would they say? To what degree would the other person say that you've handled conflict well? Because sometimes I think we think, oh, I'm great at it. Oh, I just bring things up and people listen and then we move on. It's like, maybe you move on. Maybe they're internalizing everything and it's actually eroding trust.
You know what your storyline is. Could you somehow find out what theirs is? And now actually you've got both sides and now you're in a different place. Everything's changed because now there is some clarity to what even the conflict is, even if there is one, because there may just be the perception of it. Like you said, it was just a misstep, a misunderstanding. Gone, you clear that up. But will you be humble enough to admit that maybe you don't have the full story just yet?
Well, if you've got to have one of these conversations, we've always found going on a walk is a good way to do it. Better than standing over somebody at their desk or shooting them a rocket text message or an email. So get out there with your people, walk it out, talk it out, and let us know how it goes.
Can't wait to hear from you.
See you next time.
See you then.
Hey, thanks guys. Join us again soon for another conversation. But in the meantime, it's your turn. Get out there and walk alongside the people that you're leading. Visit us at leadrelationally.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more support.